going to make a relatively bold statement that latest in 2 years from now on, there will be only two types of colorists, those who use AI and those who don't. It will be impossible for you to stay competitive in your work and produce high quality results without use of that technology.
Welcome to Color and Coffee, a podcast that focuses on the craft of color grading and the artist behind it. I'm your host, Jason Bowdacious, and each week we'll sit down with some of the most talented and creative colorists in the industry and have a casual chat from one colorist to another. We'll share their stories, their insights, their grading tips, and of course, their beverage of choice. Whether you're a seasoned colorist or just starting out in the industry, join us for some great color discussion. Strap in, grab your mug. You're listening to Color and Coffee. On this episode of Color and Coffee, I have Dado Valentic. He's a colorist, he's a color scientist, and we're going to be having a great conversation about the industry and all the incredible products he makes to help colorists' job easier. Welcome to the show, Dado.
No, thank you for having me, Jason. Thank you.
So, the most important question that I ask everybody on this show, what are you drinking today?
I'm on Celsius.
Awesome. How you liking that?
It's got very low sugar and just the right amount of caffeine, that keeps me going. So, and it's like not too fizzy. It's just the kind of the right refreshing.
We were talking earlier about how you power through the early parts of the morning and then you switch the tea in the afternoon. I may have to adapt that that as well.
Yes, you need to find where you need to peak, right? And then you schedule your drinks according to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have my traditional Starbucks blonde vanilla latte here in my Ember cup. So my usual podcast drink of choice here, along with my cup of water. Excellent. So thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. Anybody who doesn't know you, hopefully they're listening to this episode. You're a good friend of mine. Dado, you're a really busy guy. Can you tell me a little bit about what your daily schedule might be?
I'm naturally not a morning person, and I do get up early just simply because, my development team is in Europe partially, and I have to have early starts. So I have developed this, kind of routine that when I get up, I first go for a good strong coffee, and I have equipped myself with a good coffee machines. And then basically that kind of, level of caffeine I have to keep, just to avoid the crash. So I have I'm doping myself with the caffeine until approximately lunchtime, and that's kind of where I'm kind of running on high productivity. And then afterwards, I also like to do in the afternoon things that are more of a creative nature. I find myself that mornings for me are better for doing very focused productive work. The most difficult, the stuff I hate sometimes, like stuff you don't like, but I do it all first thing in the morning, and all the kind of hard things I try to schedule in the morning. And then in the afternoon, I like to allow myself to work on things that are a little bit more creative and that are not as strictly structured, because I think, great ideas come out of that playfulness, that we allow ourselves to experiment and play. And I always hope that there's going to be that sense of discovery or something that I'm going to come across through that kind of work, like just through playing and trying stuff out. So that's my kind of, usually day. And then I try at the end of the day to get out and just, because by that time I've been, sitting for quite a few hours, I might have a few breaks just to walk my dog, but, then I want to get out, and then I'm basically usually down on Santa Monica Beach, or, I might go and play a round of golf at Rancho Park, or I want to just get out and not sit in front of computer. And that I found also incredibly beneficial, because that kind of gets my thoughts a little bit kind of consolidated, right? Usually I kind of write in my head some emails, interesting things that, kind of come together. And then I would, spend some time with my family, and then I do another evening session as well. So when everybody goes to bed, I usually come to my room and I sit down and, play some music and do some, bits and pieces as well. So like I really like to fill my day like that.
You go by colorist, you're a color scientist. Do you go by developer as well?
No.
So you're colorist and color scientist.
I'm a colorist and color scientist, even though I actually I don't have a degree in any of those.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, this is interesting. I have started studying physics just because it was closest to my home,
Mhm.
and I had some natural ability for physics. I thought this is going to be easy. I never had to learn physics. It's one of those things that I never had to practice. I was always good at it for some reason. And then I was always coding. Actually, not many people know this, but I opened my first software company when I was 16 years old. And back in the day, I'm talking ZX Spectrum. And what happened, I lived in Yugoslavia back then. And that was before we became Croatia. And what happened was computers were just starting and there was no games. Like you couldn't really buy them. They were so expensive. And because there was no internet back then, I joined a little club, computer club, which was like a basement in one of the high rises.
Like the LAN party clubs?
Kind of, there was this few geeks, and it was just maybe 4 or 5 of us. And one of those guys was a super geek. He was a little bit older than all of us. And then he taught us how to crack games, literally. And then I was like, okay, so then I saw a business opportunity to basically take games and then share some cracks between us, right? And then copy them onto magnetic tapes, then label those tapes. And then there was one magazine in the whole country called Computer World. And then I would basically put a little ad in Computer World that I had games. And then I started. And it became a huge success, actually. I was making like crazy money with it, and then it became suspicious to my parents what I'm doing.
Where did this come from?
What is going on? Because back in the day, the only way for you to get paid remotely was the postman would take a package, deliver the package to the person. That person would have to pay them cash. And then the next day, another postman would come to your door and then would tell you, okay, this is the cash that guy paid, and you would sign for it. And there was this postman on my door every day. And the postman asked me, hey, kid, what are you doing, man? Where does this money come from? you know? And I was hiding it because listen, I was totally aware that this is illegal. Cracking games is not legally allowed. And my dad is a lawyer. And so, of course I was hiding it, from them. That happened. But at one moment, I think they discovered. I don't know exactly how they figured. I just remember I came back from school and I opened the door and there was this kind of, my dad called me with my, middle name, which is Dražan. And when he calls me that, I know there's something wrong. And that was the end of my business. That was it. I had to give up on it. Then I moved and used all this tape copying equipment to, make DJ mixes and copy that and stuff like this. So I kind of later utilized it through music because I was always a big fan of music. Audio cassettes, yeah. And I love music all of my life. I actually never thought I was going to do anything with film. My uncle was an actor and he was taking me to film sets and I loved it, But I always wanted to do more music, and so I kind of said, okay, nothing with computers business. Let me just go and I tried to make like a mixtapes, right? There was this famous radio stations back in the day, kind of that were playing early house music. I would listen to how they played, and then I tried to imitate the style of mixing, and so I became a DJ, through that, and I was making the tapes and so on. So that was kind of what I was doing afterwards, and then the war started, and this all basically just completely changed. So I moved to Germany. And then that was complete 180-degree change in my life. Suddenly I had nothing, right? I was just on my own pretty much, started studying physics just because I thought, okay, I can do this easy, right? And then it's actually hard. Many people don't understand this. But when you go through a situation of war, it really affects you. Even if you're not like on the first line, holding the weapon, right? You lose everything, you understand? You lose your home. You lose, you don't know what's going to happen, right?
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You don't feel safe.
Yeah. And that fear of unknown kind of switches some sort of survival instinct, right? And then what I did is one night I was coming back from my university. I was studying in Munich. And there was like a little square just outside of university. And strategically, these two gorgeous girls positioned themselves with painted Volkswagen Beetle, and they were giving flyers. And I was like, oh, let me see, what's that? And there was like a party. So I said, oh, let me try out, right? And there was Friday night, and I came home on Monday morning. And basically, that changed my life forever.
Wow.
That was the early days of electronic music. But that scene was just very inclusive and allowed me really to forget the world around me and to kind of, connect with a different side of myself. And I really enjoyed it. And that really prompted me that I give up, being just some sort of physics student, and I became a sound engineer. And then very quickly, like 2 years later, I had a record in the charts. And that was basically, I was like, okay, music is life. This is what I'm going to do. So just fast forward, I went to London then, because what you do is like, you become successful, and then where's the biggest center for music, right? London, right? This is the place, right? So I went to London, tried producing there, but at that time it was really difficult. I mean, there was lots of record labels and everything, but it was really like for me to break through in London, it was just very, very hard. So I was like, okay, listen, I'm going to do business studies because I need to know about business.
So you went to college in London.
And I did a postgraduate there. I did a Master of Business, MBA.
So DJ Dado, it goes and gets his postgrad.
Exactly. But then I lost that DJ Dado name because I signed it to ZYX Records, and I have fallen out with them because they wanted me to make every next record to sound like the previous one. And I was like this kind of creative soul. No, I think this is better. So we kind of had a follow, but my contract was such that I just had to, let them have the DJ Dado name, and I became Tito Heron. That was my kind of London DJ name. I just needed a new name, right? And they kind of came up with it. And that was really great time. I have to tell you, I was like DJing at night, studying during the day. I ran an amazing night in Notting Hill Arts Club that was, legendary, called Soleil. That it was there for almost 7 years, every Thursday. It was really, really good time. I have to tell you, this is one of my best kind of periods in life, I had a lot of fun, basically. And then I got an offer to work for Apple. And that was like, for me, like because Apple was my first computer.
Doing what at Apple?
What happened was this. Steve Jobs came back and he sacked the whole company because they were all like accountants previously. I don't know. I was told that Apple in UK was like people wearing striped suits. They had nothing to do with what Steve Jobs felt company should be. And he consolidated all European offices into one office, which was based in the UK. So they really wanted me because I spoke languages and I had an MBA. We want you to be a middleman between our big customers who have 100 plus computers, right? And you're like listening to what problems and things they have, and you're building a relationship to help them know that we will support them, that we are building new hardware, and that they don't switch to Windows NT, which was the kind of the big thing back then that corporates were doing. So I was like a guy who, exactly, I would be like Apple representative who would walk into this, and who were the biggest customers were post-production companies because they were editing on Avids, on Media 100s.
Okay. So here's your intro into post.
Exactly. So every day I would basically be in Soho. Soho is where all the post is in London. And then I would go in and it was just so interesting, to see what these people were doing. And that kind of way I discovered color grading. I just saw it first. I had a not really understanding what it is, until a little bit later. And then I was pretty good at my job. I really enjoyed it. And because of that, I get offered to move to Sony. And Sony wanted to develop a competitor to Avid. They wanted to come out with a non-linear editor.
So you're still in editorial. Your mind isn't even on color grading at this time yet.
There was no desktop grading system back then. I've seen something which was called Colossus, and then that company went bust. Do you understand? This is how unapproachable desktop grading was. The only grading you could do was the hardware-based grading systems that had to be attached to a film scanner, because it wasn't like a grading digitally. It was like a scanning or telecine, and then grading system was processing that signal in real time and was writing it to a tape. Back then, primarily something called digibeta, or even if you didn't have money, if you're on a music video budget, you were writing it to something called BetaSP, and that was really like non-linear grading like it is today, right?
The DI, as we call it.
Listen, there was a company, a computer film company, I think they were called, and then when they later acquired by Framestore, and they had their own system, and that system later became Filmlight, Baselight.
Oh.
Correct.
What a fun piece of history.
Exactly. They developed it in-house. And then another company appeared a little bit later called Nucoda. And they were basically, incredibly interesting as well because they came from film restoration background.
And at this time, these are the first software applications, or these are additional hardware-based solutions?
They were like $250,000 hardware software applications.
Okay.
At
So we're
least.
still pre-Apple Color, essentially.
Much before. I mean, we're talking like several years before. So I started with Sony, and that's really when I learned color. And the reason why I did that is because in the basement of Sony, there was an engineering department with these incredible engineers. And I was this inquisitive nature. I would go every day down and I would say, hey, John, what is gamma? What's really gamma doing, right? And then he would give me a book about it. And I was just like, because I needed to know this stuff, I would talk to engineers, to software developers, to customers, I really needed to know, I didn't want to just, repeat things without not understanding what they are. And these people taught me the math. And because I had a little background in physics and programming and math, I was able to connect the dots and understand really how that's working. And what's most important, I learned the art of product development, because effectively we were developing a new product for Sony, and I understood, so you need a software developer, you need hardware manufacturer, So I really felt and I learned, how that whole world is being done. And also I was on a cutting edge there because Sony already back then had something called HD CAM-SR that they decided not to release because they were selling so many digibetas for some Olympic Games or championship, whatever was going to happen. They had some big order and they said, listen, we can't manufacture SR because we have to shut down a factory to make them. We're going to postpone this development for the next year. And I was like, are you guys crazy? This is the best thing ever. HD tape deck with the picture quality you couldn't believe. There was just the best thing ever, right? But they kind of strategically decided to postpone it. And at that moment, I had enough of big companies. Problem about every big company is that they move very slow to begin with. And I always felt that, in big companies, you have maybe 2 or 3 people that really do work and about 20, they're just flipping papers. And, honestly, there's this, especially in Japanese companies, there is this managerial structure that goes high. So anyway, it was like, I'm done with this. I'm entrepreneurial spirit. I feel the image is just about to get 10 times better with HD. I saw it. I was working with the technology in pre-release. So I quit Sony and I start managing a company that had Avids, like a rental Avids. And back in the day, what people don't know is you couldn't buy an editing system. You would just rent it for a period. And then we would come into your studio office, set up an Avid. When you finish, we come and pick it up. And that started with 7 Avids, and that company grown to about 30 very quickly. And my bosses were super happy, and they offered me partnership in a company as well. And I was like, you know what? We're not going to do Avids. We're going to do color grading.
That's a pivot.
Yeah. And they were like, why color grading? What is it? I said, this is going to be the most important part of post-production because editing is going to go desktop. You're not going to need Avids anymore. Premiere was coming up, but it was really only for wedding videos back then, really it wasn't serious, but Final Cut 7 was just killing it. And I was like, let's not do this. Let's go something that people cannot get but that it's going to give them the highest value for money because nothing improves your product more than color grading. And basically we decided to do this, we kind of made the plans and I found even an investor for the company. I came to Los Angeles to learn how to do the color grading, but I learned nothing. I mean, literally, they just told me technically how to operate it.
Here's the wheels. Here's the wheels. Here's the buttons.
I was like, oh my God, I was so depressed afterwards. I was like, I will never learn this. The atmosphere in London there were few colorists back then already.
Around what year is this?
Well, this is early 2000. I would ask them, hey, would you want to show me? And they were like, are you kidding me? I mean, it wasn't a friendly environment. And especially, I think they were not necessarily friendly with me because I wasn't the guy who would go and drink beer in pubs with them. I was a little bit like kind of, doing my own stuff. I wasn't part of some kind of Soho clique. I felt like, I don't belong to that. I have little, and they never quite, gelled with me. Actually, there was quite a few times I experienced animosity, towards what I'm trying to do. And I got used to it after a while. I said, I know what? Who cares about him? I mean, that maybe just shows that I'm on the right path. If they don't like it, that probably means I'm doing the right thing. So I did the training in LA and then decided to stay as long as I could on my tourist visa. And I had basically work experience in Los Angeles. And that's when I learned That's when I understood the concept of color grading without any technology involved in it. Let's just remove what system we're using.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just kind of focus on the idea. We are taking an image and manipulating an image. And concept of that and why we're doing it and what we are achieving with it is something that finally gelled with me. And that is still, to me, the source of everything that I do. The reason why we are manipulating images is nothing to do with us getting jobs as colorists or because some studio decided that something has to be graded. It has got nothing to do with it. The reason why we're doing it is because color and image itself is such a powerful communication method, so to say, like or system that is by far more powerful than words. And us being able to convey the right information and the right emotion, guide the audience and the viewer in the right direction that story requires us to do, is hidden inside the secret language of color. And the language is secret, and it's not invented. We didn't invent it. We are just discovering it because it's a part of our DNA. And every human, everybody who came to this planet has in its DNA ability to decode the color and image and gain extra information out of it. And that was the discovery. Once I knew that this is real, that this exists, I knew that it's just a matter of time before everybody, more people than just, 50, 60 of us who work in post-production back in the day, right, who were kind of busy with color grading, understood that this is going to become universal language, right? The same way how music has become a universal way of expressing ourselves. So the color is going to be the same. And, think about back then, we didn't have access to cameras as much as we have now. You had to go and rent a camera or pay a lot of money for a camera, and they were really bad quality. But the one moment that changed, and I think now we are just still in the process of bigger, group of population waking up to an idea to how powerful color is. But I've seen it explode from just a few people being excited about it to millions of people being excited about it. And that's a really, really beautiful journey that if I look back and I go like, my God, this is wonderful. I'm so happy that back then I made a decision to drop my job at Sony and focus on something like this. And that instinct that the color is the right thing was right. And that I'm still today, so glad I'm involved in it.
You nailed it. It's that ability to have that impact on an emotion in the same way as music. It's really interesting psychology, and that's what clicked to me. Obviously, we use technology to do that because it's very, like, what we're capturing and what we're using to create the art is very high tech in contrast to, say, painting or drawing. But yes, that's just the tools we're using to get to the final result, which is emotion. Yes.
And that's a really another interesting point that you just said, which I really 100% agree with you. What's very specific about color grading, it is so closely linked to the technology. And the reason also why we see the renaissance of it is just because the technology has become so much better, so much powerful, and so much more accessible. And that was really the driver as well. We can't ignore the fact that the technical development has had a massive impact into our ability to process image and what to do with image. And that's an interesting balance. You are having an artistic domain effectively being tightly combined with the technological domain. And for me, it was always that magic point where they overlap, where things happen. And it's not when one is stronger than the other. There are some amazing colorists out there that are just too technical to be creative. Or there are some amazing colorists out there who are too creative to be not enough technical, so their images are looking like weird. Anyway, you get me. So that kind of sweet spot is really what makes this job or this art form, so to say, really, really special for me. And I was always interested in that kind of, the cross between the two. And I was actually interested so much that I decided to explore the art world. And, when I actually had an excursion, once I sold my company in London, back in 2018, I had a 1 year working as a CTO of a startup that was making VR art, with some of the
Really?
biggest artists in the world. I made a virtual version of Marina, like literally a VR Marina.
How interesting.
Then Anish Kapoor, this famous sculptor, British sculptor, that experience to me was probably as valuable as working with Vittorio Storaro, or working with Ridley Scott, because in a way, what I learned from there is that they're also dependent on technology. It's just that the technology is a little bit different. you know.
How would you say that? Like, how would you say that you're talking about a sculptor? How would you say that they're using technology? Because obviously, that's to me, that's obviously what technology are they necessarily using?
Okay, let me tell you this. Okay, just a perfect example. Anish Kapoor. He has a style of sculptures. You recognize Anish Kapoor because the moment you stand in front of his sculpture, it just takes you. It actually makes you a little dizzy as well, because he makes this concave mirror sometimes, big reflective spaces that just disorientate you for the moment. He really uses optical illusion to make you question the reality. Unbelievable. So in his quest of making next better and bigger piece, he discovered this company that developed, this special paint for military vehicles to hide them at night.
How interesting.
And that is this absolute black. So there's the technology.
Got it. Okay. So by having an open mind to what you're looking for next and what you can use to help you get to the next level, you are able to, find new technology in different areas.
Exactly. And then what you do a service, not just to yourself, because you've just fulfilled your desire to create something amazing and fantastic. Because what's very specific about all these artists is that they have an incredible drive to create. The moment they get out of bed, before they had their first coffee, their mind is already racing with ideas and stuff that they want to create. Their purpose in life is to be creative. To create, right? This is what they're here. That's why they're artists, Then it's not to be famous and rich. They're here because they have an incredible drive that is inexplainable, but it's part of their texture. They need to be creative. They need to create. They need to build. Okay, and that to me it was such an amazing environment to be in, to work with people like that are
inspiring,
totally right. With that, inspire a whole generation of future artists who take that what they have created and make their own versions of it. They use it as inspiration for their world, and then you can see the whole branches of art becoming real, right? So you see, like they have helped the next generations to grow and find their niche, how they want to express themselves. There is very little difference practically between what they're doing with their art and what we're doing. One thing you have to just understand, what is really very, very different to us, is that we are not owners in any way of our artistic expression. We are facilitators. The people who own the artistic pieces that we create are primarily studios or directors or writers. I hope writers will become owners of it, poor things. And now that they're striking, I'm really rooting for them. But in any case, we are only a facilitator.
We're assistants to the DP in the best sense of the word.
Correct. But our assistance has a big element of artistic expression involved in it in order for us to be able to succeed in our job. And that was, for me, the biggest gap that I feel I have discovered when I came to Hollywood. So once I finished this, art project, I moved to LA, and then I was shocked when, Warner Brothers gave me a contract, which was for an engineer, effectively, because they are union studio. And, most people don't know, but based on a union, we are engineers.
Yeah.
You know what? I told them they can, that I'm not going to sign this. I'm not an engineer. Are you kidding me? I'm nothing against engineers. I love engineers. I actually sometimes even write on my forms, like for visas, I'm an engineer, because if I write on color sign,
it's a misclassification.
I've got none. But you know what? Hello, guys, this is 2020, or back then, what I was, what are you talking about? Are you telling me that this is an engineering job? Well, if it's an engineering job, someone could read a manual and do it.
Yeah, it's like calling people operators, which is another pet peeve of
Come on.
mine, which is like flame operator or
Come
resolve
on.
operator, which is like,
It's just for me, like, and I understood what they happened is they haven't updated their papers for decades because back in the day, we were engineers who were transferring film to tape. And it required very high engineering skills to do that because equipment was clunky, was breaking down, but I can't believe that since then nobody has actually recognized the artistic and input that colorists are putting into it. And for me that was like probably the biggest shock. Nobody really wants to fight the system. All big colorists are just wave their hand and they go like, I do my thing. I have the customers and directors and cinematographers who are my friends and who understand what I do for them. I don't need some union to give me a.
if you have the Rolodex, it becomes stiff. You lose the drive to fight that fight sometimes.
And what it is you would have to give up your day job and become a full-time representative for colorists and fight for colorists' rights. And yet nobody has decided, nobody is prepared to give up their career to fight for that cause. I have not met anyone yet, and I know that there was several attempts, from people. In reality, this is all just good colorists giving up their free time, few spare hours they have every week to fight for general colorists, industry, right? But before there isn't really a body that somebody who gets paid to sit full time in their office and lobby. Nothing's ever going to change. And we haven't got there so far, right?
Dado, I know you're a big advocate of AI and moving forward with technology. I'd love to hear about your thoughts about sort of AI and where we're going with that in terms of our industry and color grading.
I think the right way to say is I'm a big advocate of technological development, and as such, AI is playing a big role in it because it is technology that is going to impact our lives, and it is technology that has already changed for some, and it's going to change work for everybody who works in picture post production, including colorists. And I'm going to make a relatively bold statement that latest in 2 years from now on, there will be only two types of colorists: those who use AI and those who don't. Okay? Because it will be impossible for you to stay competitive in your work and produce high quality results without use of that technology. And like in anything else, those who will be winners and those who will be losers as well, will be those certainly who are willing to change and to adapt. Charles Darwin, you understand? It's not the strongest, it's not the smartest, it's those who adapt. So what is really important for all colorists today is that they basically start adapting. We are on an early stage with it. It's just we can only see like hints of how beautiful things will become. But the reason why it's important for everybody to start dabbling in and using these tools is because the improvement is going to be very sudden. What is very apparent about AI as technology is that it's not progressing in a gradual way how we were used with technology in the past. Computer would go according
Moore's
to
law.
Moore's law. AI is not moving according to Moore's law. You're kidding me. I mean, it's moving at the speed of light, right? I like the analogy of surfing. In surfing, positioning is the most important thing. You learn at one moment how to stand on the board, maybe turns, but what's the most important thing you need to learn, which is to know where you're going to position yourself to be at the right spot when the wave just about breaks and you're just about next to the peak, not quite on the peak, and you're able to get it. And when a really big wave comes, I'm talking, let's say, something like 5-6 foot, right? For me, that's big, okay? Can't afford to be in the wrong place because it will trash you. Seriously. You get hurt, right? And AI is this technology that you can't afford not to be in the right place. Seek information about the new stuff that's happening. Try, to join some newsletters that are weekly giving an update to what's happening and so on, because it is that wave that is very large is coming, and you need to be following people that are already positioning themselves so that you're in the right position as well.
You're not saying to put like literally dive in the deep end. You're saying just like while those little waves are coming, maybe start playing if you're not using the seam cut detection, maybe start playing with that more. It's literally take another step than you further already were
Exactly.
comfortable with.
And start accepting the situation that very soon the tool set you're using is going to change, right? And that suddenly you're going to be able to work in a slightly different way. And then also, what is really important is like what's going to separate you from everybody else is really how you use those tools. Because you understand, AI is completely useless to humanity unless there is somebody skilled who knows how to use it. Like if you're to put an elderly person in front of ChatGPT, right? I don't know they would probably get a little bit entertained, but if you put a skilled prompt engineer in front of it, you would get 100 times more benefit than somebody who doesn't know how to prompt engineer. So this is just a simple example, like, you must start waking up to possibilities and get really used to the idea that things will become different.
You touched on a really interesting point in that the success or fail state with AI is so different than other learning, in the fact that it can be very discouraging to go to whether it's Midjourney or ChatGPT or literally insert any AI-based tool, and it's really easy to get a fail state where it's you go to it and you try it something, whether it's I want to make an image out of nothing and I want it to look like a certain style, and it doesn't do that. And it doesn't give me the purpose that I want. And then to go, you know what, it's not doing what I want. And then to just be discouraged and stop doing that. And the fact is, the way that I have seen AI or machine learning based tools evolve is all of a sudden, when you do get that past state and it goes, you know what, that's not perfect, but that's pretty close to what I asked. It's not
Exactly.
It's not what I asked for, but that's definitely not what I asked for. And you start to get these interesting things that all of a sudden, like you said, the tools you're using are going to change. But I think people are afraid of, well, the tool, me, is not going to be here. The tools that are going to be replacing me. But the fact is, I think people are mistaken in the fact the tools that are going to be in your hands are going to be different. You are still going to be there, though, because this is a complex job.
It is. You're right that the things will change, like in terms of that not everybody is going to be here, so for example, based on a historic analysis of similar events that happened in the past where an advanced technology has come in and has made a change in an industry, we in our industry, we had it several times.
How did that play out?
So look, this is how it plays out. And every time plays out the same, so there is no reason why it should play out any different way with AI. So you have to understand, industry is a little bit like a pyramid, okay? And on the top, you have the high end, the Stefan Sonnenfelds of this world. And what's going to happen with them is that they're going to get even more in demand and more expensive. And because of the ability to what they are going to be able to do with image is going to be so much more than what they can do today, that the creatives of this world will be desperate to take that as a part of their toolset to make the product even better. So the next Avatar, the next Top Gun, the next big movie is going to spend even more money on process of color grading that is AI assisted because of the ability to modify and improve image with this technology in much better way than it is. And I really hope that, company 3 right now has got a good plans to how they're going to integrate some of these amazing tools that we have. And if they don't, they can call me. I'll show them what's going to be possible. Okay?
I'm sure they will. And if they're listening, they know where to find you.
This is what I would be doing if I be them right now. And I'm pretty sure they are. I mean, they're very smart people. So they probably know what they're doing. Then we have the middle part. What's middle part? Well, it's your kind of reality TV shows, cooking shows, sitcoms, stuff, where, with a little bit care that you put during the shooting process, you can actually completely eliminate the final grading part, because we're going to be so good in automating that with AI that the human is never going to be able to come close to the quality of color grading that's going to be fully AI driven for any of those shows.
For the time and the budget that they're giving.
Even if I was to tell you, like, okay, I give you any time and any budget, to do the best possible work you can as a human, and I'm going to get the machine to do the same thing, you're not going to be able to be as precise as machine is going to be able to. So it's a battle that we lost already, because the precision that an image can be measured and adjusted by an AI system is no comparison to what a human eye can see. There is zero artistic expression in that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me be clear about it. All it's doing, it's balancing and flattening and making things look structured.
1 equals 1.
One equals 1, exactly. But there is, and you can't really fight that. And why would you? Because
well, we want that. Consistency is 80% of our problem here, and then the rest of we can spend more time finessing, which
correct
to me is what I'm trying to tell people. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, balancing is the meat and potatoes of our job. But if I could spend more time finessing, I would do that in a second.
Totally. And I think, we will certainly that kind of middle part of color grading that is, happening at the moment is going to change, and the people who are doing those jobs will probably be able to complete more in the same amount of time, and they will have a more artistic input in the overall image, because they will be free to worry about the artistry and the quality of that image rather than execution.
Rather than just the raw match. Can you just make this look?
Can you copy paste this grade on 2,000 shots in one day? Which is what's happening with a lot of those shows. No, we have only one day to grade an episode of Love Island, and it's 2,000 shots shot on 10 different cameras. And you go like, are you kidding me? And you're calling this a job? This is not a job. I mean,
that's
this
an
is
engineer.
Worse. You understand? What is this? This is crazy. Why? What can I do in here? Just cover up errors. That's all I'm doing, right? Anyway, that's another story. Don't get me going down there. So
that's a great thing to bring in, and that's a great job for AI. Things that are repetitive, things that can be repeated. And and so let me be devil's advocate though. So at the moment, though, we have those mid-level. And then what about these really low-level?
Something is happening that has never happened before in the history of humanity, and especially not in the history of media. And it's something that we touched just earlier with the fact that millions of people are discovering color that have never even paid attention that color existed. And they're becoming now aware of color, and they're now interested in using color in their own work. And why? Is because we have just entered creator generation. There are, based on a research that has come out by an investment company from New York that have done a research recently based on a valuation of companies like Frame.io and stuff like that. What they claim is that there is today more than 5 million people who declare themselves as full-time creators. They are full-time. That means they don't have a day job. All they do is make videos and post videos.
All they do is make content.
And you know what? They monetize it so well that they can make a living out of it. Better than what they were doing before. And some of these people were even doctors, neuroscientists who gave up their jobs to become a creator. So certainly, it's not that they work for peanuts, right? They certainly found a way how they can monetize their content in such a good way. And they are also fighting for eyeballs like Netflix, like Amazon, like Apple Plus. At the same time, we have a new generation of viewers whose attention span is the shortest we ever had, because these people grew up on a short form content, and they are perfectly capable to entertain themselves by watching 100 short form formats than one 90 minutes film. So the world has changed drastically. I mean, come on, we're not in the same world today like we were 2 years ago. So what's happened for color grading, what's happening is that there is now millions of people who need color grading who they never even knew how to spell color grading before. And they want to be colorists, but not really colorists. They don't care about being a colorist and artist like you and I do. All they care about is the content is looking good. You know what they want? They want this one magic button, okay? AI is going to do wonders for them. And their size, the size of that market is so much bigger than professional media production companies, right? They are so powerful because of their size that they will drive the development.
They'll drive software development. The whole... Yeah.
They will.
We're seeing this on app development, on iOS. I can't say that I mean, we've seen it in Resolve too, actually, the whole cut page. I was going to say that's not happening on at regular Mac OS and Windows, but then I had to bite my tongue because it already is.
And that's basically what is going to happen. So that's going to become really big, right? If you are today paying your mortgage and sending your kids to school as working as a colorist, you have pretty much two options, like, for the future, two paths to take. One is to go for the high end. And that means start doing stuff that no one else can do. Be able to produce image that people don't understand how they can't recreate. They don't understand how did you manage to make something look as good, and even though they have the same software as you do, they can't get it. You have to have your secret sauce that will help stand out and become somebody who directors and cinematographers will desperately want to work with, because you have ability that others people don't. And you know what? You don't have to be a big company anymore to do that. What's really amazing is that the mind of creatives, directors, and cinematographer has opened so far that they don't mind working with a guy or a girl that works from their bedroom, as long as
I
they
think
get
technology has also gotten to the point where the pandemic and technology sort of at the perfect time opened the door that big you can't not work at a facility and have a certain level of feature sort of fell down with the pandemic. And then also we are finally getting to the level of having remote tools that are of a certain professional caliber, where I can confidently say to a DP, hey, you and I are looking at the same image as long as we're on a decent enough monitor and device, that we can talk as professionals in two different places and do color grading.
Amazing.
Right?
You know what, Jason? I'll work with you like that anytime, because otherwise I'd have to get in my car, take the I-10 down, then try to find parking around your place somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Run from the session to pick up my kid from school, come back. You understand? It's
Absolutely.
As much as I love working with someone together, I want to minimize the amount of effort I do for that, right?
Absolutely. Especially, there's times when you want to go into a studio for the AAA large budgets when you need to set something, but there's so much that can be done remotely now for the time benefit of everybody.
Totally. So what I'm saying is I want to encourage, professionals out there to open their mind and search for things that are not necessarily mainstream, because anyone can buy DaVinci Resolve today and can do a couple of training courses and pretend they're a colorist. It's not a big deal, right? What it is really is like what you do with it. And you have to have certain secret sources that other people don't understand how you do, and which is basically why our tools are so successful, is because they give people ability to create looks that they can't even imagine that they were able to do before. And then they send it. Look, I have so many customers who tell me, Dado, I had a problem that I would do a grade, and then the agency would take the guy who's a work experience person who claims they know DaVinci, and they would color exactly like what I do, and they would continue color grading themselves based on the grade I did for the first part. And then they start using my tools and they say, Dado, they can't do it anymore.
It's a workflow thing, yeah.
Because, maybe there is something in my subtractive color science that they can't recreate. And it's true, they can't. Okay? The blend of color, they can't. There is no curve and tool on planet Earth that, is going to work exactly how the look designer subtractive is going to work. You understand? And that's basically where they go like, well, you know what? Now they have to come back to me.
It's really funny, because it's sort of like if I said, I took my car in, and the second I got it home, the first thing I did was take apart the engine to figure out what they did. You'd look at me like I was crazy, because nobody would want to do that unless you're a car guy. And if you're a car guy, you're probably not going to take it in anyways. But it's just really funny to think about it that way. Like if you want to bring in a pro, unless you're really looking to save money, just go back.
That's why you're bringing them at the end of the day, like making your product look better, and it's just that they kind of, feel like, okay, we can take shortcuts. But then there is a second path as well, which I think we shouldn't be ignorant to.
So let's talk about that one real quick. That's the middle and the low path that a lot of people are going to fall into.
Yes. You know what? And I think, it's a time for us to recalibrate our view. Because, professionals, people working in professional, like especially let's say in Hollywood or something like that, they look down on all the YouTubers and creators. They're like, these YouTubers, a little bit like, these guys, the kids, right? Listen, those kids get more eyeballs and more viewers than Fox TV, would ever get on their most popular show with Gordon Ramsay. I mean, listen, there is a cooking show on YouTube that is 100 times more popular than any episode of Gordon Ramsay ever was. And you guys can feel so good about yourself that you work on Gordon Ramsay's show. Now listen, that YouTuber has got more audience and is making, by the way, more money than Gordon Ramsay's show can generate, because the advertising budget, the way how YouTube monetizes their show and how sponsors are flocking onto those content creators, generates much more income for them, and they are smaller operations, more agile, and they're able to actually afford to pay you, sir, as a colorist, to do their show and pay you better rate than a traditional broadcaster will be able to do.
So looking down upon them is a bad business decision and two bad future clients.
Correct. So it's a moment for us to wake up to understand they have an incredible power. The tables have turned around. Like, for example, if I was to tell you that Mr. Beast is using my software, it has more value than to say the company 3 is using my software.
So we're definitely in a different world now.
You understand?
And that leads me into, it's because, well, one, he also has the ability to influence other people and using it as well.
And everybody wants to be like him, and they think like, oh, well, if he's using the other software, then my YouTube video is also going to be like this. And there's there's a 5 million people, right?
So that brings me to a great question. So as people that are listening to this are professionals or professional colorists. So your suggestion was to develop a look or develop a style. And that's certainly something that is a good suggestion. How can we do that when obviously anybody can go out there and buy your software look designer, or you can go out there and buy Power Grades or something from Pixel Tools, or for any variety, you got Filmbox. We have so many different tools now. What makes an artist different from the box that they use now or the product that they purchase?
Okay, it's a very good question. At the end of the day, it's your creative decision that is going to be valued. And the tool that you used is not really important in it. Okay, I think you should have all of those tools and try them all out and explore them and find out what each one of them does, because each one of them is really good in doing, particular things. Okay, you understand? So I don't think you should ever limit yourself by not having the right tool. If I'm a professional, even if I'm a car mechanic, listen, I'll have every single tool on the planet, right? I'm not going to be not able to fix someone's car because I don't have the right key. You understand? So I'll have them all. Okay, that's number one. But that's not the recipe. Right? If you kind of think this is again the problem with the technical colorist thinking.
I see this online a lot, which is I'm trying to get this look. Is it Filmbox? Is it this? Is it the right software? And I get it. It's like you want to. There's an urge to get the right tool, and that's going to get you there. I know it's like 10%, and using the right tool is helping you on that path, but that's not the way.
But that's okay. So let me tell you this. So fine, you get it. Let's say you get a Filmbox or whatever. How many looks can you create with Filmbox?
And not to narrow out Filmbox. I love Filmbox, but
I love it as well. But
tool,
let's say how many? I mean, 1, 2. You know what I mean? Like it always looks like Filmbox. You can't change it. Let's not talk about Filmbox. Let's go Magic Bullet. Right? I mean, everything looks like Magic Bullet. No matter what you do with it, it's always going to look like Magic Bullet, right? These tools are great, but they're very one-trick ponies. Like, you have to understand that you have to open your mind. So let me give you an idea, which is, for example, just what happened this week, and that I think, I have helped a group of maybe about 120 people open their mind to possibility to what they can do, and maybe I can help also listeners of your podcast open their mind to what's happening. I just did basically a seminar where I took Mid-Journey. And so I pretended this scenario. A client comes to me and has a particular show they want to create. They said to me, oh, I would love it to look like this or like that. Whatever. They gave me a little brief. So what I did is I've developed a little practice to how to structure prompt for Mid-Journey.
So you have a template, so you're not starting from scratch, like any creative draft.
And I basically, so I taught, in this seminar, I taught everybody how to use this template for how to develop style, how to build lighting scenarios, how to build color palette. So I was able to really narrowly specify what kind of look I wanted. The Mid-Journey came up with a photorealistic image of that particular subject that I was going for, with a perfect style imitating, some famous photographer, cinematographer. And then I used that style with Color Lab AI to transfer onto my image. And you know what, Jason? What happens is that I
Wow.
made look that I could never, never in my life have thought I would grade something in that way.
What a great combination of tools. Yes.
Because every time I open a raw file, I'm a little bit limited to what's in that raw file to where I want to
Reality.
end. You understand? You go like, and you push it and you go like, oh, I don't want to push it too far. I'll stay true to what they shot. Where about Mid-Journey goes like, you know what? You prompted me this look. This is what I think this look is. And then Calabea just in one click transfers it. And you suddenly end up with a look and go like, oh my God, wow, how good this looks. You know what? That like break between reality, what your camera captured, and the reality you created through AI, is really huge, because you are not anymore grading based on what you shot. You're grading based on actual idea to how something should look.
And that's, I think, something that we were talking about earlier, which a lot of people, at least colorists, when they hear AI, they're thinking the whole process needs to be automated. And you nailed a perfect example where I'm just taking one step. Instead of taking a still from another movie, I'm just going to AI generate this, and I'm going to go into the same workflow that I always did.
Correct. I pushed that one shot to my timeline and I manually finished the rest of the sequence like I always do. Right? I don't need AI for that. I'm pretty good after 22 years and I know how to mash stuff. So basically, it's a blah, and I'm done. And you know what? That is just an example to what you as a professional can do today to stand out. Because I guarantee you, if I was to be a director and I was to send this piece to color grade to 10 different people, that 9 of them would give me ballpark similar result, because we all work in the same way. Oh, you shot it like this? Maybe I'm going to apply this light or that light. Maybe I'll make it warm cold. But I will always stay very true to the original, right? Or close to the original. And suddenly there is this one guy or girl who basically got, completely crazy idea that actually works. Why it works? Because stylistically, it follows the brief. But it looks visually unbelievably beautiful.
It looks different. It's something new. It's something
correct.
creative.
And that actually just reminded me on a story that my mother used to tell me, when I was a kid. And, she said, so the king was looking for a prince for his daughter, right? Husband. So he said, okay, I'm going to kind of now give some tasks to find who's the best man. And then one of the tasks was like, okay, who's going to see the sunrise first, is going to win the first task. And all the men from the village went and they were looking in direction of east. And this one guy, this little poor guy that didn't have any chance to win the girl's hand, right? He looked in the direction of west. And everybody laughed at him. They're like, oh, when you look at the sun's coming this way, what's wrong with you? In that moment, like everybody was waiting to sun, he screams, oh, your highness, there is the sun. What happened? On the top of the hill, there was a house with a window, and the sun reflected off the window. And that little poor guy was the smartest of all. And you know what? These little tricks that we use, how to deploy Mid-Journey, how to do this, is exactly that. The little guy who has a little better idea and is looking in the opposite direction is suddenly, the winning the prince's heart. And I think this is exactly the attitude I think, we kind of need to kind of deploy. The powers are changing. We each have to think rather smarter than follow, where the herd is going. And I think that's where you win. That's where you win in creative world.
So as we approach the end of our time together, I have a question that I ask everybody that's on this podcast. So if you were to be banished to a desert island and you were still having to color grade, all your clients were still calling you, I'm allowing you to take one tool with you. What would that tool be?
Yeah, I love the question, but I have no doubt about it. There is only one tool, and it's called primary color correction. Leave gamma gain.
That's a popular one. It's printer lights and primaries.
I was going to I could say something as well, but I didn't want to try to sound too salesy. But like an EXO1 and look designer probably would give me an infinite amount of options. But I didn't want to kind of make this podcast like just plugging my software, because in reality I have to tell you I would still be, there is a primary inside the.
You still need a primary, even with primary is still something you'd reach for.
There is a primary inside a look designer, would still rely very much on that primary. So yeah,
Well, that's a great choice. And if I were banished to a desert island, that'd be definitely one that I'd consider as well.
Yeah.
And if people that are watching or listening wanted to find out more about you, where can we find you?
It's very easy. If you ever Google AI color grading, you'll probably stumble at colorlab.ai. But actually, I run, really successful colorist training program, and it's more like a coaching really, because it's a kind of something I developed over the years and I'm very passionate about as well, where I really take people from zero to hero in period of 6 months, 1 year. And it's probably, if you people really want to connect with me, right, and if they really want to have a weekly calls with me and learn from years of my experience and follow that concept that I'm teaching and philosophy and approach to color grading, then I would recommend, that they also join color.training, and it's a British spelling of word color. I've everything that's kind of a little bit European in America, is regarded as better. So maybe that's why I left the British spelling.
And I'll definitely have a link to that in the show notes. I've taken a couple classes from you. They are really fantastic classes. So I definitely recommend those to whoever's listening. And also, I'm a user of Dado's plugin, Look Designer and Color Lab AI. There's some great plugins. I definitely recommend you take a look at those as well. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Dado. I really appreciate your time and all the amazing information you shared with us today. It's been a blast talking with you.
It was interesting, Jason. Before this, I kind of had some sort of plan what I was going to talk about, and none of that has actually happened. And I love the direction which we went to. We went to really like an interesting direction. And I think this is really nice that, when you're having a, podcast with someone you feel relaxed and comfortable talking to, that you actually, go a little bit behind the scenes in a way, and you reveal some stuff that normally you wouldn't. So thank you for allowing me speak about stuff that's maybe close to my heart as well. So thank you for that.
It's truly my pleasure. Hopefully we'll get you on the show sometime again in the future.
Thank you.
And that's our show. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, or your podcast app of choice. If you're using Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave us a review. It helps us quite a bit. If you are looking for DaVinci Resolve tools, please be sure to visit our sponsor, Pixel Tools. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks with another great interview. Happy grading.